continuing this line of discussion, the Biden administration plans to bring evacuated inhabitants of Gaza to the United States as refugees. And this continues to draw criticism as the administration offers zero evidence it has addressed how to adequately vet this high-risk population for terrorist ties. I mean, neighboring countries won't take them, so why would the United States? The millions of migrants that have poured into the country due to the Biden border crisis has security officials already on edge for a potential terrorist attack. How would a Gazan refugee relocation program increase that risk? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Chad Wolf. He was a former acting secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, now chairman of the Center of Homeland Security and Immigration at the America First Policy Institute. Chad, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, thanks for having me, Tony. Good to be here.
Let me just ask you point blank, your reaction to the Biden administration apparently planning to bring Gazan refugees to the United States.
Well, as you indicated in your intro, I'm just as skeptical and concerned about that plan as I think most Americans are. You kind of summed it up well. I think there's a lot of questions that they need to answer. But first, I think they need to explain to the American people why they need to do this. This idea that we need to bring folks from Gaza all the way to the United States when sort of the principle and the rule of thumb is when you want to resettle refugees out of an area that perhaps is dangerous, that you want to do that as close to home as possible. So if countries like Egypt and Jordan are not taking these individuals because presumably there are security concerns, well, what is the Biden administration doing that allays those security concerns, and why won't EU countries and other countries in the region take them? And so I think the Biden administration has got a lot of explaining to do if they actually go forward with this proposal. I'm hopeful, though I'm not, waiting with bated breath that they will abandon this. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and it gives me a lot of pause to see them going down this road.
Now, Chad, you were a part of securing our southern border during the Trump administration. You got that under control, so immigration is something you know quite a bit about. Is this not a break with like a 4-decade-old process that we had as it pertains to Palestinians? Very few of them came to the United States over the last 40 years. This is a significant change in that policy, is it not?
Well, I think it is. And we also have a refugee process that if you want to be resettled here in the United States, that it's a very lengthy project because there's a number of security checks and there's a number of vetting steps that need to be done. And what we've seen from the Biden administration, particularly as it relates to the Afghans after the fall of Kabul, is that they shortchanged that process and they allowed hundreds of thousands of Afghans to come here in the United States to be resettled only to do the security checks after the fact. And if they're going to do that again with folks from Gaza, I think the concern is still there is how do we know who these individuals are? Because vetting them is going to be very, very difficult if you're relying on data and information from Gaza authorities, what little authorities there are. And so it's going to be very difficult to vet these individuals.
Right. I was going to ask you that to draw a comparison between what they did in Afghanistan and bringing those individuals over here. We still don't know exactly what risk are contained within those individuals they brought over. This would only heighten concern by those who are trying to keep this nation safe from within.
Well, it would. Instead, I think the better approach is why don't we work with allies in the region and elsewhere to say and allow them to take these folks in. Again, trying to resettle them closest to home. So if conditions improve in Gaza and they're able to go back, then they're able to do that very quickly. Tony, you and I both know that once they get here in the United States, there's very few that will actually leave the United States. And so that is not really refugee resettlement. That is just moving them to a different country here in the United States. So I think we really need to keep that in play and instead encourage our friends and our allies and others around the world, but particularly in that region, to take these individuals in if they are truly, needing to be relocated.
Isn't it true that most of them have not wanted to take them in because of the security risk of being certain that Hamas operatives are infiltrating the civilian population?
You're exactly right. It's the same concern that we had with the Afghans, which is, after the fall of Kabul, everyone was saying, hey, look, we need to help those that help the United States. those interpreters and other folks. Instead, what we saw from the Biden administration is them paroling in 400,000 Afghans. Well, not all of them helped the U.S. military. And so, but we had a very difficult time understanding who was friend and who was foe. And you're going to have the same process unfold here in Gaza, trying to understand who is someone that either we're comfortable with or who is someone that we really can't verify who they are. And so their connections and their ties, perhaps to Hamas and to other groups, is questionable. And those are the individuals you don't want in the United States. But again, the Biden administration doesn't seem to be concerned about this. I'm afraid that we're in a presidential election year, and they are making certain decisions. I've seen them make certain decisions for political reasons more than anything else.
Final question for you, Chad. How can this be stopped? If the administration wants to do it, who can stop it?
Well, it's hard. They've got a lot of authority, the president does, to allow refugees to come in. I mean, Congress can stop it at the end of the day. It will take both houses of Congress to do that. But the administration has some ability under the refugee cap and the refugee authority that they have to bring individuals in. But accountability and oversight is what the Congress can do.
Chad Wolf, I want to thank you as always for joining us today and appreciate your insights.
All right, thank you.